I really want to give thanks for the good work that you and your team do every day. We really appreciate it. And you spoke earlier to Senator Hutchinson about some of the constraining factors we see facing our future economic outlook. A while back, I think it was in November, you published your 5-year outlook, and that was prior to our new governor being sworn in. And your team projected fiscal deficits of $1.5 billion for the end of the 23-24 fiscal year, and then a deficit of $3.1 billion by the end of fiscal year 27-28. As things have moved and progressed with a new governor, a new budget proposal, have you run any numbers and have you factored into those numbers what the governor's budget proposal entails?
Yes, to your point, we do put out a 5-year report every November, and at that time we had a structural deficit of about $3 billion. That doesn't include any policy initiatives. That assumes that the economic growth turns to normal. And in the governor's budget, with the policy initiatives, they have a structural deficit of about $2.5 billion. Now, I could get into a longer discussion and compare the two, but I'll hold off on that. In answer to your question, we have not plugged in the policy initiatives and turned the crank to see where we would come out and what that would imply. That can be done. We have done that in the past.
So with the numbers in the governor's budget, you are projecting by the end of the 23-24 fiscal year, we will be at a $2.5 billion deficit? Or is that at the end of fiscal year 27-28?
Yeah, so I just refer to page 3 in our hearings packet, and just based on the governor's numbers, and again, this includes policy initiatives, it includes the various growth rates that he has built in. It suggests a current year deficit of $2.2 billion, and then that ticks up to $2.8 billion in 25-26, and then back to $2.5 billion in 27-28.
Good, thank you. You also issued a report earlier this month on our electricity market and how we compare to other states, and I have to tell you, I think it's fascinating. And specifically, your report shows that Pennsylvania is the leading electricity exporter among all states in the entire United States by a wide margin. Alabama, I think, exports about 40% less electricity, and they are the second highest exporting state. And your report points out that Maryland is a net importer, as is Virginia, 2 states that cannot generate enough power for their own residents. And your report further states, and I'm going to quote this so I don't get it wrong, in 2022, Pennsylvania's net exports were equal to the combined import demand of Ohio, Maryland, New Jersey, and New York. Simply stated, these states don't generate enough electricity to supply their own residents and their own businesses with enough power. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Can you talk about the financial implications of that? The Revenue Secretary was here. How does that impact our gross receipt tax, and what's the other financial implications of that?
Sure. So to your point, so we put out this report every year, and we look at the Pennsylvania electricity market. This is the second year we put it out, and both years we found that Pennsylvania is the #1 exporter of electricity across all 50 states. Now, what was so impressive to me this last year was, despite the fact that the prices of natural gas went up quite a bit, we were still the #1 exporter, and in fact we bolstered that position relative to the states right behind us. So that, to me, that was just tremendous that happened. Certainly, given that we're the #1 exporter, it has significant implications for economic growth. We can look into that if desired, and how that reverberates through the economy, downstream effects, upstream effects. It flows both ways because energy is a major input into virtually every product that we make, good or a service.
And I think this might be more of a statement, but I really would like to get this on the record, and that is I represent a district along the Maryland border, and my local farmers are constantly under siege by power companies to place high voltage power transmission lines through pristine preserved farmland because states like Virginia and states like Maryland aren't doing enough to generate their own electricity for their own residents. And I really appreciate the positive economic impact of electricity. Impressed that while we have massively increased the amount that we generate, we've reduced emissions, and seeing a lot of good work in that sector. Farmland's really important too, and I'm sure that has a great economic impact on our Commonwealth as well. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.